예, 안녕하세요. 이제 벌써 16번째가 되었네요. 이제 8주차가 돼서, 학기도 이제 반이 지나갔습니다. 음, 어쨌든 뭐, 지금 코로나 사태로 인해서 계속 온라인 강의를 하고 있는데요. 뭐, 이제 많이 이제 풀리고 또, 상황도 좋아지긴 했지만은, 어쨌든 이제 조심을 하는 의미로 계속 이제 온라인 수업을 이제 진행을 하도록 하겠습니다. 뭐 어쨌든 참 쉽지 않은 상황인데 중간고사는 이제 취소가 되고 뭐 여러분들한테도 이제 쉽지 않은 그런 상황이긴 한데요. 어쨌든 지혜를 모아서 잘 이제 극복을 하고 뭐 저도 이제 열심히 생각을 해서 여러분들이 이제 잘 공부할 수 있는 그런 환경을 제공을 하도록 하겠습니다. 예, 어쨌든 뭐 지금 우리가 이제 파이프라이닝에 대해서 이제 배우고 있는 상태고요. 제가 이제 싱글 사이클 프로세서로부터 시작을 해가지고 이제 파이프라이닝 디자인까지 이제 배우고 있습니다. 어쨌든 여러분들이 약간 이제 이게 실습하고 이제 좀 합쳐지면은 이제 좀 이해하기가 이제 더 쉬울 수 있는 그런 주제인데 이제 아직 그런 환경이 되지 못해서 좀 아쉬운 건 있습니다. 그렇지만 이제 다음 시간에 제가 이제 약간 우리가 이제 프로세서를 더 잘 이해할 수 있는 어떤 시뮬레이션 툴 이런 것들을 이제 조금 소개를 하려고 합니다. 아직 계획 중이라서 어떻게 될지 모르는데 어쨌든 뭐 다음 시간 정도에 이제 좀 더 이제 파이프라이닝을 잘 이해할 수 있는 그런 툴을 좀 이제 소개를 해서 여러분들의 이해를 이제 조금 도울 수 있는 그런 시간을 좀 마련하겠습니다. 우리가 이제 저번 시간에는 이제 파이프라이닝의 이제 실제적인 이제 구현 디자인에 대해서 이제 계속 이제 들어가고 있는데요, 배우고 있는데 어쨌든 이제 계속 이제 제가 이제 말을 하지만은 싱글 사이클 프로세서는 쉬워요. 그냥 한 클락에 한 인스트럭션만 이제 수행이 되면 되기 때문에. 그렇지만 이제 파이프라이닝에 가면서 이제 구조가 이제 조금 더 이제 복잡해지는 이제 구조로 가고 있습니다. 어쨌든 우리가 이제 디자인할 때 이런 뭐 컴퓨터 프로세서로 이제 디자인을 하게 될 때 뭐 이거는 사실은 뭐 많은 디자인이 마찬가지입니다. 뭐 디지털 디자인도 마찬가지고요. 뭐 우리가 이제 처음엔 데이터 패스부터 이제 시작을 하고 그 다음에 이제 컨트롤이라든지 이런 여러 가지 시그널들이 이제 들어가게 됩니다. 그러니까 우리가 이제 디자인 아키텍처 레벨에서 이제 디자인하게 될 때 이런 식으로 이제 디자인이 들어간다라는 거를 이제 보여주는 거죠. 이제 파이프라이닝 디자인 같은 경우에는 이런 뭐 데이터 패스나 이제 컨트롤뿐만 아니라 우리가 파이프라인에서 고려해야 되는 여러 가지 상황, 뭐 데이터 포워딩이라든지 아니면 데이터 해저드, 그 다음에 이제 가장 막판에 배울 건데 뭐 exception handling이라든지 이런 여러 가지 부분들을 고려를 해가지고 또 이제 컨트롤 유닛들이 더 들어가야 됩니다. 그래서 여기서 끝나는 게 아니라고 했죠. 여기가 이제 가장 베이직한 그런 뭐랄까 파이프라인의 구조가 되겠고요. 여기서 좀 더 이제 복잡한 컨트롤 유닛들이 이제 들어가게 됩니다. 우리가 이제 저번 시간에 배웠던 거는 보딩 유닛의 어떤 조건에 대해서 이제 배웠던 것이죠. 뭐 여러분들이 이제 설계를 하게 될 때, 디자인을 하게 될 때, 뭐 이런 조건들, 하나하나씩 이제 따져가면서 이런 어떤 컨트롤 유닛의 컨디션에 대해서 조건들을 딱 나열을 하고 그 컨디션에 맞도록 이제 설계를 하면은 이제 되겠습니다. 자, 포워딩에서는 어쨌든 언제 포워딩을 하죠? 한 인스트럭션의 이제 데스티네이션 레지스터가 following 인스트럭션의 소스 레지스터랑 동일하게 될 때 우리가 포워딩을 하게 되는 거죠. 물론 이제 뒤에 해저드에 대해서 이제 배우게 되겠지만은 그 앞에 이제 인스트럭션이 우리가 전에 배웠죠. 뭐 로드 인스트럭션일 때 로드 인스트럭션이 될 경우는 얘는 포워딩은 불가능하죠. 뭐 그러니까 이런 부분들을 다 이제 살펴보면서 이제 포워딩에 대해서 이제 살펴보게 될 건데요. 뭐 우선은 요거는 이제 좀 무시를 하고 해저드는 이제 뒤에 다시 더 추가되는 하드웨어로 이제 배울 거기 때문에 우선 포워딩의 조건에 대해서 이제 가장 기초부터 이제 시작을 하는 거예요. 쉬운 거부터. 그러니까는 가장 쉬운 건 뭐예요? 소스랑 데스티네이션이 그러니까 following instruction의 소스랑 그 다음에 그 former instruction의 destination이 같을 경우에는 우리가 forwarding을 하게 된다. 에서 시작을 하는 거죠. 그리고 이제 그러면서 이제 조금씩 살을 붙여가면서 이제 점진적으로 이제 그 컨디션을 refine 하는 그런 단계를 거치게 되는 것입니다. 뭐 그래서 이런 가장 기본적인 그런 조건은 우리가 생각할 수 있는 가장 기본적인 조건은 포워딩은 우선은 이제 두 군데서 이제 발생할 수가 있고요. 요 두 군데라는 거는 after execution 그 다음에 after memory stage에서 포워딩이 이제 발생할 수 있다라고 했죠. 그 두 가지 이제 조건에 따라서 이 부분이 이제 결정이 되는 거예요. 결정이 되는 것이고요. forward from XMEM to pipeline register and forward from MEM write pipelining register 이렇게 결정이 되겠고요. 그리고 잠깐만요. 왜 안 뜨지? 얘가 네. 그 다음에 이제 점점점 우리가 살을 추가를 해 나간다고 했죠. 가장 이제 기본적인 컨디션에서 시작을 해가지고 그렇지만 우리가 고려할 게 더 있어. 이제 사람들이 이제 이야기를 하는 거죠. 자, 어떤 거를 고려를 해야 되나요? 실제적으로 데스티네이션 레지스터가 라이트가 아닐 경우가 있다라는 거죠. 그 부분을 우리는 또 고려를 해야 되는 것이죠. 그 라이트가 되지 않는 조건. 우선은 이제 첫 번째로 라이트를 해야 되니까는 요 레지스터 라이트 컨트롤 시그널을 우리가 봐야 되는 거고, 그 다음에 이제 데스티네이션 레지스터지만 실제적으로 라이트를 하지 않는 데스티네이션 레지스터가 X0일 때, X0는 항상 0라고 했죠. always 0. 뭐 그렇기 때문에 요 이제 특이하게 그 레지스터 파일에서 X0 같은 경우에는 그냥 다 0으로 이렇게 묶여 있는 거예요. 그렇기 때문에 이 같은 경우에는 포워딩을 하지 않는다 라고 여러분들이 이제 생각을 하면 되겠습니다. 그런 것들을 이제 고려를 해서 우리가 이제 포워딩 유닛을 만들어 놨고, 포워딩은 또 어디로 일어난다고 했죠? 항상 포워딩은 EX 스테이지에서 데이터가 required 될 때 data is required. 네, 이럴 때 우리가 이제 포워딩이 이제 하기 때문에 그러면 이제 포워딩이라는 거는 어디 앞에 있어야 돼요? 요 ALU 앞으로 와야 된다는 거죠. 데이터가. 그 다음에 그 ALU 앞으로 오게 될 때 그 데이터를 이제 선택하는 그런 데이터 패스는 좀 많이 이상하지만 어쨌든 그 인풋을 선택하는 데이터 패스는 우리가 MUX를 쓰죠. 멀티플렉서를 이제 쓰게 되는데, 멀티플렉스가 몇 개의 인풋을 갖는다? 3개의 인풋을 가지게 되는 거죠. 하나는 노멀 인풋이고, 하나는 어디서 와요? 얘는 메모리 라이트백의 파이프라인 레지스터에서 오고, 얘는 어디서 오죠? 맞죠? 예. 얘는 EX MEM 파이프라이닝 레지스터에서 오는 그런 3가지 패스를 가지고서 이제 결정을 하게 되는 겁니다. 그러면은 자, 포워딩 유닛은 어떤 신호를 만든다? 자, 우리가 이제 MUX를 만들었으니까는 MUX의 셀렉션 시그널을 만들면 되는 거죠. 그 셀렉션 시그널이 생기는 조건. 어쨌든 00일 때는 normal, 10일 때는 EXMEM에서 오고, 01일 때는 MEM write back에서 온다 라는 것을 우리가 이야기를 하였습니다. 제가 아마 여기까지 했죠. 예. So I briefly reviewed the previous class So I briefly reviewed the what we learned in the previous class, and then in the previous class we learned about the boarding unit. It's some more complex control unit that is inserted in the pipelining architecture. This boarding unit is required because the pipelining architecture need to support boarding function, so data boarding, for example. Now, in other words, data boarding. So why data boarding is required? So in order to prevent hazard by data dependence. So this hazard is called data hazard. So data hazard is caused by data dependency between multiple instructions. And then in order to prevent the performance degradation by this data hazard, we need the data boarding function, and then this data boarding function is controlled by the boarding unit. So for this boarding unit is the control unit inserted in the pipeline architecture. And then this boarding unit generates the board A and board B signal, and then this board A and board B signals control the input of multiplexer in front of ALU inputs. So I explained until this in the previous class, and then but we need to also consider some exceptional case. So it is not some process exception, but it's some rare case. So rare case is the more appropriate representation. So it's some rare cases. So what is this rare case? So double data hazard. So double data hazard. So this is the example of double data hazard. So this is the first instruction, add x1, x1, x2. So we know that the x1 is the destination register. And then in the following instruction, another add instruction, use the data from this former add instruction number 1. And then the generated calculated data is stored in the x1 again. And then the following instruction, another add instruction, add number 3, also needs the data from the former instruction. So in this example, the second add instruction requires the data generated from the first add instruction here, and then the third add instruction requires the data generated by the second add instruction, not the first add instruction. But in the previous condition, we defined some boarding condition for the boarding mux multiplexers. So what's that condition? So first condition is that destination register is same to the source SRC source registers, and then data is actually written. So it's really written. So any other, yeah, that was the conditions for the boarding unit, right? So actually for these two conditions, this example meet these two conditions for this data boarding and this data boarding, right? So how can we solve this condition? So by this boarding, the data can be boarded from this add instruction at the which pipeline memory write back pipeline to forwarding mux. And then second, for the second condition, for this between this second and third add instructions, the forwarding is set to the ex mem pipeline register to forwarding mux. Okay, so actually these two conditions conflict in this example, so we need to select the correct condition in this and then correct path in this example. So what's the correct path? So correct path, so the first, if this add instruction is in the memory stage, then the data should be forwarded from the exmem stage to the forwarding unit, forwarding mux, not the forwarding unit, forwarding mux by between instructions 1 and 2, right? And then in the next cycle, the possible forwarding, there are two possible forwarding paths from 1 to 3, and then from 2 to 3, instruction 2 to instruction 3. So what's the valid forwarding path? This forwarding path is valid. So this forwarding path is valid. So suppose hazard occurs, so we need to forward the most recent result to the following instruction. So we need to we need to resolve this condition for this double data hazard cases, for this double data case hazard. So this is the revised forwarding condition. So in the previous slide, if the forwarding control signal is 0, 1, then data is forwarded from the memory write back pipeline register. But for this case, for this double data hazard case, we need to prevent this forwarding from the memory write back pipeline. So this condition should be inserted in the previous forwarding condition. For the forward A is 0, 1. So 0, 1 is the data is forwarded from the memory write back pipeline register to the forwarding mux. So what's that condition? How can we generate the condition? We need to consider this double data hazard case for this forwarding condition. So what that condition is that? So exmem register write. So this is the what's that? The second add instruction. So store the data to the register x1. So it's the true register write. So we need to check the true register write, and then the exmem register write is also 0. So the second condition also check the true write register, and then exmem register write. So add x1. This for the second instruction. For the second add instruction, the destination register should not be equal to the source register of the instruction number 3, the third instruction, third add. So this condition should be inserted in the forwarding control unit. So this condition detect the what condition? This condition. So in this case, this forwarding from the what happened? exmem2 for the forwarding from the ex and memory stage has the higher priority than the memory write back pipeline register. Okay. So for this some rare case, so we need to add this condition for this boarding 01, and then this boarding B is also the same. So we need to, what's the different? This is different only. So this condition should be inserted in the boarding cases. Okay. So we complete the boarding unit in the pipeline architecture. So this boarding control unit is inserted in the here, and then this boarding unit receive the data from this pipeline register, EXMEM pipeline register, and memory write back pipeline register. Right. So receive from this data, and then compare with this RS2 and RS1, right? From the IDEX stage here. This path and this path. So receive these signals and then generate the selection signals for the boarding boxes here and here. So this boarding unit is inserted in the pipeline architecture. So for the pipeline architecture, we start from the data path, and then pipelining registers, and then control unit, this control unit, and then now we added the boarding unit. So this is some more not completed, but it's the advanced. So it's the pipeline architecture advanced from the single cycle processor architecture. Okay. So now we need to consider the data hazard. So what is the true data hazard in the pipeline architecture? So that means that when the pipeline cycle is wasted by the data dependency, data hazard, is the load. If the former instruction is load instruction, and then the follow instruction, sorry, I was interrupted. So when the data hazard is caused, so when the data hazard occurs in the pipelining architecture, if the former instruction is load instruction, and then the follow instruction requires data from the load instruction, then we need to store the one cycle in the pipelining processor. So that means that we need to store the entire pipelines. So first, so we need to add the hazard detection unit. So first we need to, the pipelining processor needs to detect the hazard condition, So this hardware detect the condition of the data hazard, and then store pipeline. So this is the process of data hazard, process of handling data hazard in the pipelining architecture. So how can we detect the data hazard? So it's the same, very similar to the to designing the boarding unit. So how can we start the design of boarding unit? We first define the boarding condition. So it's the same. In order to design the hazard detection unit, we can start from the hazard condition. So what is the hazard condition? I already explained. So if the former instruction is load instruction, so actually the purpose of load instruction to read data from the data memory. So load instruction will generate the memory read control signal. So in the IDEX stage, the memory read signal is detected. That means that this is the load instruction. And then if the destination register is the same to the source register of the following instruction, then we need to store the following instruction in order to prevent some corrupted result by the incorrect data. So this is actually it's simpler than the boarding unit, because in the boarding unit we need to we start from the basic of the boarding unit condition, and then we need to consider some additional conditions such as the register write and then the destination register x0, and then also we need to consider the double hazard case. So actually the condition of the boarding unit is more complex than the hazard detection unit. But hazard detection unit condition is simpler. So first we need to detect the load instruction with the mem read control signal, and then just check the destination of the load instruction and source register of the following instruction. So you need to check this pipelining register. So IDEX pipeline and instruction fetch and ID pipeline. Okay. So if the hazard is detected, then we need to store the which instruction should be stored in the pipeline. Following instruction, not load instruction. So this detection is performed at the ID stage, because this source register is the result of the instruction fetch and then ID pipeline register. So this detection is done at the ID stage. Okay, so which instruction should be stored? The instruction at ID stage. So if the following instruction is at ID stage, then load instruction is in the EX stage. So actually this load instruction should fetch data in the memory stage. So the load instruction should keep going in the pipeline stage, but the following instruction in the ID stage should be stored. So then store means that the instruction is remained in the pipeline architecture, pipelining. So how can we implement this pipelining stores? How? So pipeline store just means that it's very similar to the no operation in the pipelining stages. So that means that this is the example: load x1 and then add x2, x1, for example. So the load instruction keeps going through the pipeline stages. So it's in the EX stage, and then it's going to the memory and write back stage. And then how about this add instruction? The add instruction is stored at the ID stage. So that means that when at the 1 clock, the load instruction is located at the memory stage, but in the EX stage, this add instruction is stored. So in the EX stage, the computer processor does nothing. Okay. So do nothing is identical to the no operation, and then actually this no operation is called the NOP, N-O-O-P, NOP. So and this add instruction is stored in the pipelining architecture, pipelining stages. Then the pipelining processor need to generate the NOP instruction, no OP, no operation. So how can we generate the no operation? We can just set the all control signal as 0. Okay. So also we can generate some 0 values for some destination and source register, but we don't need to that. So just to set the control signals as 0. So that means that the following instruction, like this add instruction, so it's stored that instruction actually. So if the no operation is performed in the pipelining architecture, pipelining processor, then the controls, and then we set the all control signals as 0. So that means that the operation by this instruction, no operation, is not performed in the pipelining processor. Okay, because what's the control signals? So control signals are generated by control unit. So what's the control signals? Like it's not easy to. Okay. So what's the control signals? Control signal is the read write. What's that? Leg write, and then something like ALOP, and then memory read, memory write, and memory rest. And these are the control signals. If these signals are 0, then the data path does nothing. Okay. So actually very simple. So implementing the pipeline store is very simple. So then this no operation is frequently called the bubble in this course, or bubble in this course, because this is no operation. This is just the waste of cycles. Also, we need to prevent the update of program counter and registers. So what does that mean? If the memory instruction, like load instruction, is in the EX stage, and then the following add instruction is ID stage, and then the next instruction, some other instruction, maybe sub, can be in the instruction fetch stage. So after 1 clock, this load instruction propagate to the memory stage, and then this is the NOP. It's a store. It's a bubble. So add instruction remains in the ID stage. How about the following instruction, sub instruction? Sub instruction also remains in the instruction fetch stage, because the former instruction is stuck in the pipeline architecture, pipelines, then the following instruction cannot propagate. So this is the pipelining processor. So first, we need to generate the bubble in the pipelines, in the EX stage, and then we need to prevent the update of program counter and the instruction in the ID stage, instruction fetch and ID register. So actually it's also very simple. We can prevent the update of a program counter only in the instruction fetch stage. So if the program counter value is kept, then the same instruction remains in the instruction fetch stage. So actually for this second operation, the second operation of the pipeline store, like prevent update of PC and the instruction fetch ID register, so we just keep the program counter value, and then that's it. So if the program counter value is kept, then same instruction, sub instruction, is fetched again, but there's no difference between the previous instruction, like sub. So this is the operation of the pipeline stores by data hazard of load instruction. So in this example, this load instruction stores the data onto the register X2, and then we need the 1 clock store. So it becomes the no operation. Nope. It's called the nope, not nope. Sorry. So no operation. Nope. And then after 1 clock, end instruction and the following instruction is propagated. So in this multi-clock cycle diagram, the hazard is detected in the when actually the end instruction is located at ID stage. So it's actually the end is here, and then load instruction is actually no, not this one. Load instruction is located in the EX stage. So in the clock cycle number 3, in this time period, the load instruction is located in the EX stage, and then the end instruction is located in the ID stage. And then actually the what's that? The OR instruction is here, because the pipeline OR instruction is already fetched. But by the hazard detection unit, the data hazard is detected. So at clock cycle 4, the load instruction propagates to the memory stage, but end instruction is stalled. So bubble is generated, like this bubble is called the nope, no operation. So bubble is generated. So at clock cycle number 4, end instruction is kept in the ID stage, and also the OR instruction is fetched again by the same program counter value. Okay, so you don't. So it can be confusing, but you need to understand this process. It's not confusing actually. So bubble is generated, no operation is generated in the EX stage, and then end is kept in the ID stage, and then OR instruction is fetched again by the same PC value. And then what about the clock cycle number 5? The load instruction is propagated to the write back stage, and then nope is generated. So this nope is also propagated because it's the pipeline processor, pipeline architecture. So the instruction is propagated to the next stage. So end instruction is propagated to the EX stage, and then OR is in ID, and then some new instruction, add instruction is fetched. And then load instruction complete the execution after the write back stage, and then the nope is propagated to the write back stage, but no operation is performed because it's a nope. So this is actually the no operation. The end is here, OR is here, and the add is here. So this is how this diagram shows how the pipeline stores performed in the data hazard. So we need to add the hazard detection unit in the pipeline architecture. So hazard detection unit is located in the ID stage because the hazard is detected at the ID stage. So how can we detect the hazard? So we need to compare the source register of the instruction in ID stage, right? So for the hazard detection unit, we need the two source registers, RS1, RS2, and then we need the where's the destination? So we need to check the load instruction with the mem read control signal, and then we need to with the destination register from the IDEX pipeline, okay, pipeline register. And this, let's check this signal comes from the where? Here, okay. So hazard detection unit is located here, and then if the hazard detection, this is the required signals for hazard detection, and then if the hazard is detected, then we just insert the zeros for the control signals. So it's a 0 is inserted in at the ID stage. So hazard detection unit generate the NOP signal, forcing NOP signal for this box, okay. And then we need to prevent the instruction update on for the following instruction. So the PC maintains the current value for the next clock. Also, this IF and ID stage also keep the same value. Okay. So this is the hazard detection unit. So we now added the hazard detection unit in the pipeline architecture. Okay. But storage does store causes the performance degradation in the pipeline in the processor. So we need to, if possible, we need to avoid these cases, pipeline stall cases. So compiler, as we already mentioned the previous class, the compiler can reorder the code, the instructions of the code, so to prevent the data hazard. Actually, we covered this issue in the maybe where is it? Here, okay. Code scheduling to avoid stalls. And then let's talk about the control hazard, another hazard. And then this control hazard is caused by branch instruction and then jump instruction. So this branch instruction changed the program counter value for the next instruction. So the problem is that in our first pipeline architecture implementation, the branch instruction is reserved at memory stage. So that means that, so this is the example of this pipeline processor. So when the branch instruction is located in the memory stage, the branch is reserved because the branch is the comparison of the two data is performed by ALU. It's ALU. So the ALU performs the comparison with the subtraction operation, and then that means that the condition of the branch is reserved after EX stage. So that means that when the instruction is located at memory stage, we can finally know the result of branch instruction. So if the branch instruction is located in the memory stage, that means that the following instructions are in the EX and ID instruction fetch stages. And then if the branch is taken, so taken means that T. So sometimes I represent the taken branch as T. So that means that the conditions of the branch instruction map and then the program count is changed with the target address of branch instruction, target piece actually. So if the branch is located in the memory stage, the next instruction can be fetched. So how about these instructions? So branch is taken, the next instruction, like for example, the program counter value 72 is fetched. So how can we handle these three instructions with just the pipeline processor need to cancel following three instructions. So we cancel the fetch of the following three instructions. That means that we waste the 3 cycles because of branch instruction. 3 cycles. The waste of 3 cycles. So this is actually huge performance loss in the pipeline architecture. Okay. And then the hazard caused by this branch instruction is called the control hazard, right? So actually in this class we will learn how to reduce this control hazard, effect of the control hazard. So that means that what's this huge performance degradation factor by control hazard? So the huge performance degradation of clock cycle waste is caused because the branch is reserved at memory stage. So if the branch instruction can be reserved earlier, then the number of wasted clocks can be reduced, right? Can you understand? So we will learn how to reduce this penalty of branch instruction. So we will add some comparison hardware in the ID stage. Actually, the comparison is very simple in the digital logic design. How can we compare the 2 bit? Okay, compare the 2 bits. We can use the exclusive OR. Exclusive OR. Because so what is the result of the exclusive OR? So input and the output 0 0 0 1 1 0 1 1. Input 0 0 is a 0, so 1 1 0. It's the output of the exclusive OR. So that means that if the 2 values are different, 2 bits are different, then the output of exclusive OR is the 1. And it's the same, identical, then the output is the 0. So for the 64-bit value, actually it's very large, but 64-bit, we can apply the exclusive bitwise exclusive OR for the 64-bit to 64-bit data, and then just check the all 0. So how can you check the all zeros for the exclusive OR result, bitwise exclusive OR result? So we can use NOR gate for the all 0 detection. Okay, so actually this data comparison is can be implemented with the simpler hardware, not subtractor. So subtractor may consume the 1 clock cycle, but with this simpler hardware, that we can reduce the delay for the data comparison. Also, in the previous slide, we assumed that the register file access latency is the 100 picosecond, and this is less than 200 picosecond. The delay of ALU, so we assume that the delay of ALU is 200 picosecond. So we have enough time to perform the data comparison with the exclusive OR gate and the NOR gate. Okay. So this is some technique. So we can reserve the result of the branch instruction at ID stage with this simpler hardware. So if the branch is resolved earlier, then we can reduce the penalty of the branch instruction. So what then, if the branch is resolved at id stage, then what is the penalty of a branch instruction? Actually, the penalty of taken branch instruction. So if the branch is resolved in memory stage, then the penalty was 3 cycles. But if the branch is resolved in id stage, the penalty is just 1 cycle. So the wasted clock by taken branch is reduced to 1 cycle. Okay, this is some example. So how can we implement this hardware? So we added the data comparison unit here after the output of a register file, and then how about the target program counter calculation? So actually, in the original design, the target PC is calculated at where? Where is the actually calculated? Here. So we calculate here, and then is updated at the memory stage, in the memory stage here by these control signals, and then so this is the program counter. But this target program counter value can be, we can easily know this target program counter value in the id stage, right? Because the target PC value is the operation of the immediate value plus current PC, the PC of the branch instruction. So we can easily calculate the target of the branch instruction in the id stage, because we need the immediate value is here. So immediate generator is located at the id stage, and then with this immediate value plus current program counter value, we can generate the target PC at the id stage. So branch instruction result is reserved in id stage, and then also the branch target PC is calculated in the id stage. So we can easily feedback this what's that? Here, so here, and then if the branch is reserved, the branch is taken, then we can update with the next PC value with this target PC value. Okay. So in the original design, the branch is reserved in the memory stage, but in the new design, which can reduce the penalty of the branch instruction, the branch result is reserved in id stage. Okay. So actually this sorry, this slide shows some flows of the instruction by the branch instruction. So we already discussed that branch is here. The branch is located in the id stage. Then branch can be reserved in the id stage. So id stage is here. After 1 clock, the branch is propagated to the ex stage, but does nothing. This branch instruction does nothing. And how about this following instruction? This AND instruction, if the branch is taken, this AND instruction is fetched incorrectly. So because this AND instruction is just the very next instruction of the branch instruction, like PC number is 44. But if the branch is taken, the program count is updated to the 72. So even though the branch is reserved in ID stage, the one instruction can be incorrectly fetched. So we need to cancel this instruction. So how can we cancel this instruction? Insert bubble, like make this instruction as the no operation. So if the branch is taken, the following instruction is changed to the nope, like bubble. It's a bubble. There's no operation. And then the new instruction is fetched with the target PC load. Okay, so this is the operation of the branch instruction in pipeline processor. Then let's talk about the dynamic branch prediction. So, so branch prediction means that this branch predictor hardware predict the result of the branch instruction. So what is the result of a branch instruction? Taken or not taken. So how can we predict this behavior of a branch instruction? So how can you predict the future event? So if we monitor the result of some same instruction, and then based on this previous event, we can predict the future event. So if the behavior of this branch instruction is simple, then we can easily predict the behavior of future branch instruction for the same branch instruction. So why branch predictor is required? So actually in the simple pipeline architecture, so we enhance the control head. We reduce the control hazard with the enhanced pipeline architecture by moving the resolution of the branch instruction to the ID stage. But in real computer hardware, this penalty can be much higher if the deeper pipeline architecture or superscalar architecture is employed. So what is the deeper pipeline architecture? So actually in this class we learned about the 5-stage pipeline architecture. But in real hardware, in order to increase the performance of the computer processor, we can increase the number of stages of the pipeline architecture. For example, so what's the benefit of increased number of stages? So actually, for example, in the 5-stage pipeline, we set the clock period as the 200 picosecond. But with the deeper pipeline architecture, we can also separate the one stage to the 2 stages. Then we can reduce the delay of the combinational logic or data path in the pipeline stage. So, for example, it's some ideal assumption, but if the pipeline stage is increased to the 10 stages, then theoretically we can reduce the clock period to the 100 picosecond. So that means that the clock we can double the clock frequency of the processor. So that means the performance of the computer processor can increase by double, 2x. So this is the benefit of the deeper pipeline architecture. But problem is that because of the branch instruction penalty, the performance improvement cannot be double of the double with the deeper pipeline architecture. So if the pipeline stage is deeper, is getting deeper, then the penalty by the branch instruction is also increases, and then this penalty is much higher with the deeper pipeline architecture. So you may think that it's just branch instruction is rarely is not frequently used in the program. Then the performance penalty may be very small, but it's not true in the real program. And then it is reported that actually the branch instruction is observed one of branch instruction is observed among 4 to 5 normal instructions. So that means that every 4 instruction, 1 branch instruction can be found. So if the branch penalty is so high, then the performance degradation by the branch instruction is also high, and that's the critical performance issue in the computer processor. The superscalar pipeline is also true. So superscalar pipeline means that the multiple instructions can be fetched in the one clock. So if the more instruction is fetched after the branch instruction, then the penalty by this taken branch instruction is also high. Actually, in the 5-stage pipeline architecture, only 1 instruction is fetched after the branch instruction. But with the superscalar pipelines, multiple instructions can be fetched. For example, 2 instructions or 4 instructions can be fetched. So after the branch instruction. So that means that if the branch is taken, we need to cancel these 4 instructions. And that's that means that the penalty of the branch instruction is higher. So in order to reduce the penalty by this branch instruction, the computer processor has the dynamic branch prediction. So this dynamic branch prediction is actually, as I explained, this dynamic branch predictor monitors the behavior operation of the branch instruction and then predict the future behavior of branch instruction. So we need the branch prediction buffer. It's called the BPB. And then this BPB just tracks the history of the branch instruction for each branch instruction. So for example, there can be some separate multiple branch instructions, like branch instruction 1, branch 2, branch 3. And then branch prediction buffer just tracks the behavior of the branch instruction for each branch instruction. Like it's taken, not taken, not taken, taken for each branch instruction. So, and then this is some what's that? So fundamental baseline algorithm of the branch predictor. If the previous branch result is taken, and then this branch predictor predict that the next event of the branch instruction is taken also. And then is for this branch instruction is not taken, it's a taken. So the branch predictor assume that the behavior of the future branch instruction can be similar to the previous event of the branch prediction. So this behavior is monitored, and then the future instruction is predicted. So you may think that this prediction is so it's called naive. Naive. So naive. Yeah. So simple. That means that's so simple. But the probability of this branch prediction is very high in the normal program. Actually, we know that the branch instruction is frequently used for the iterative loop, like for I equals 0, I less than 100, and I plus plus. So for this iterative loop, the branch instruction is located at the end of this instructions, and then if the condition is taken, branch is taken for the if the condition meets the this defined condition. As actually the variable meets the defined condition. So for this branch iterative loop, the branch instruction is taken 99 times, and then the only is not taken after the 99 taken event. But so we can predict the future event of the branch instruction by monitoring only one previous event. This is called the one-bit branch predictor. So this one-bit branch predictor just check the one previous result. Like if one previous result is taken, then the next event is predicted as the taken also. And then if not taken, the future event is predicted as the not taken. So this is the one-bit predictor. So that means that, and this predictor assumes that the future event of the branch instruction follows the just previous result. But this is not always true as you expected. So, for example, some folded iterative loop like for j equals 0, and then j is less than 100, blah blah blah, and then inside of this for loop there can be I equals 0, and then I is less than 100, blah 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 blah. So there are two loops, inner loops and outer loop in this iterative loop. So if we use the one-bit predictor, this prediction is always false at the start of the inner loop, and then also the last event of this inner loop. So what does that mean? So actually this inner loop will be tested how many times? 10,000 times. So, but in the start of this inner loop, if, for example, if I is 0, so if I is 0, then the behavior of the branch instruction is taken. If I is 100, the behavior of a branch instruction is not taken. But it's very simple. Like if I is 0, 1, 99, and 100, and then this is the predicted value, and this is the real value. So the one in the previous event is taken. So it's predicted as the taken. The real value is also taken. Taken. And then in the 99, if I is equal to 99, the event of the branch is also taken. But also, if I is 100, then the branch is predicted as taken because the previous event was taken. But the real event is not taken. Okay, so in this case, branch prediction is wrong, and then this inner loop will be reinstated by this value of the j, and then normally the inner loop is executed 100 times by this outer loop. So because the real value is not taken at the start of the inner loop is predicted as the not taken, right? But what's the real event of the branch instruction? It's taken. So it's wrong. So for this, what happened? So for this example, the one bit predictor is wrong at the start of the inner loop and also in the last of the inner loop, last event of the inner loop. So we can enhance the branch predictor. How? To track the two previous event, like a 2-bit predictor. So the 2-bit predictor just saturated counter from start from the 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So if the branch is taken, then the counter is increased, but it's saturated at 1, 1. So if the previous value is 0, 1 or 1, 1, then the result of the branch is predicted as the taken. Otherwise, the branch also it's a saturated counter. So if the branch is not taken, then the counter value is decreased and then saturated at 0, 0. And if the counter value is 0, 0 and 0, 1, then this branch is predicted as the not taken. So this is the 2-bit predictor. So 2-bit predictor just check the two previous event of the branch instruction. So with this 2-bit predictor, then we can increase the hit ratio of the branch predictor for the previous example. But it's not always good for the all iterative loop as you expected. So it's not always good. Actually, the hit ratio of the branch predictor is just depends on the behavior of your program, your code. So there are, but this is the out of scope of this class. So I just shows the 1-bit predictor and then 2-bit predictor of the branch instruction. Also, even with the predictor, so we need to waste the 1 clock cycle for the taken branch, because the target program counter of the branch instruction is calculated at ID stage. So if the branch target is reserved at ID stage, the penalty of the taken branch instruction is 1 cycle. So we cannot reduce this penalty. So we need the branch target buffer. This branch target buffer is which works as the cache of target address. And then we know that the target address of the branch instruction is deterministic. So that means that the target address of the branch instruction is actually the immediate value plus program counter of branch instruction. And then this immediate value is stored in the branch instruction, and then program counter is also mapped to each branch instruction. So this is deterministic, and this program counter value is deterministic. So if we know the previous target address, target program counter of the branch instruction, then we can reuse this target address, target program counter value, right? So this branch target buffer is just a cache, so cache memory for the branch instruction. So when the branch target address is reserved, then this target of the branch instruction is stored in the branch target buffer (BTB), and then this branch target buffer is indexed by the part of the program counter of a branch instruction. We cannot use the all program counter bit because the program counter bit is very large, but we just use the part of the program counter value of the branch instruction to index the branch target buffer. Okay, if the branch is reserved, then target of the branch instruction is stored in the branch target buffer indexed by the PC. And then if the next branch instruction is fetched by the branch instruction is fetched in the instruction fetch stage, then the branch target buffer is accessed by the program counter value of the branch instruction. And then the target address is read from the branch target buffer. So this process is done during the instruction fetch stage. So it's the target address is read from the branch target buffer, but the next instruction is just fetched by this target fish. Also, this branch target buffer works with the branch prediction table (BTB), branch prediction buffer (BP), branch predictor. So by the branch predictor, if the branch is predicted as the taken, then the next PC is updated with the target read from the branch target buffer. If not taken, predicted as not taken, then PC is just updated for the next instruction, PC plus 4. Okay, so this is how the branch predictor and branch target buffer works in the pipeline, actually the computer processor. And then this branch target buffer and branch predictor is very important for performance of the computer processor. So, but the detail of this structure will be covered in the advanced computer architecture course, which will be offered in some senior level of the undergraduate student or graduate level. Okay, so so I'll stop here. If you have any question, and post your question on the Piazza or Blackboard. So I believe the branch this topic relate to the branch predictor is a little bit tricky to the undergraduate student, but I believe you can understand because you are smart. But if you have any question, so you can post any questions on the Blackboard, and then I already explained that the Blackboard application can be used in the smartphone, right? So if you post your question, then I can see your question immediately because my smartphone let me know the question is posted on the Piazza, not Blackboard, Piazza. Okay, I will stop here. 예, 수고 많으셨고요. 예. 어쩌다 보니까 좀 넘어갔는데 그래도 뭐 잘 들으시면 좋겠고 어쨌든 hazard, control hazard, and data hazard 역시나 이제 중요한 이슈이기 때문에 여러분들이 이제 잘 이해를 하면은 좋을 것 같습니다. 예, 수고 많았고 그 다음에 이제 뭐 호목 2도 점수가 올라왔으니까 확인해 주시고요. 예, 다음 시간에 보도록 합시다. 예, 수고 많았습니다.